after the fact and do a local law to change it.
Well, the problem is in the stuff you gave me, which is, I guess, still on my desk, it says in there that it was actually changed, the budget was modified in March of 18.
Back to 48 because it got changed in the budget to 51 and they couldn't do that because you had to do the local law, is what she said.
I
But
don't
that wasn't
think that's
discussed.
quite accurate. My understanding from what I've read and talked with the supervisor is that the legal notice of the preliminary budget hearing specified the highway superintendent's salary at $48,000. And the town board was obligated, of course, to have that public hearing. But after the hearing, the board had the discretion to change that figure from 48,000 to something different.
It's
And-
51,366.
Well, according to the email that I received, or copy that I received from Cheryl,
From the
well, it was,
Association of Towns.
well, it was your email, part of your email to the Association of Towns seemed to indicate that the starting salary for 2018 was a little over 51,000.
Mhm.
And then in March of that year, it was reduced to 48,000.
And she said that's because you didn't do a local law.
Well, it was reduced, and what Richie is saying, if I heard you correctly, starting 2018, the first paycheck you got was based on 48,000.
48,000.
In January.
So I'm not quite sure where that 51,000 figure came from. Richie's quite sure that his salary starting in January of 18 was 48, which would comply with or confirm with what was noticed in the public hearing at $48,000. So from what I'm hearing, his salary was not changed from the notice of the preliminary hearing. It was 48,000 in the notice, 48,000 was what he actually began to receive. Which was okay, the town was within its discretion. And apparently there wasn't any alteration of the preliminary budget. It was 48 in the preliminary budget, 48 in the adopted budget, because that's what Richie began to receive. So it doesn't seem, based on what I've heard here tonight, it doesn't seem as if his salary was adjusted at all after the preliminary budget hearing notice was published. It was 48,000 consistently.
Then it started 51.
It didn't, no, it
So now they
started
gave
on
48,000.
9/28, it was 54,000 in the requested, and then it was, tentative was 50,000.
Now, according to what the material from the Association of Towns and an opinion from the comptroller's office and a court case, in order to reduce that salary at some point later in the fiscal year, which apparently didn't happen here, but if it had happened, the town needed to pass a local law subject to a mandatory referendum, reducing the salary from something here to something less. And the flip would be also true, to increase the salary, a local law subject to a referendum would also have been required. But apparently that didn't happen. It's 48
It stayed with the,
all the way
what
through.
was advertised.
Yeah,
Well, that was advertised, but that was not what was in all these budgets throughout the workshops and the rest. That was done
After the election.
after the election, the 48, and Richie has a document with Don's handwriting on it that still has the 54,000 on it. And that's what he's taken to an attorney. So that's, the question is, when was it changed, and when is it considered that you're running for office? And you assume that salary is,
You have to go by
What it
what's
is.
advertised, correct?
Well, no, you go by what's in the adopted budget.
Which was?
Where
I
it
don't
got
know.
manipulated from 51 to 48, 54 to 48.
and it was 51,
I mean, the preliminary budget, the notice of hearing advertised the highway superintendent's salary at being 48,000. And then after that hearing, the town board had the discretion to either raise that or lower it, or keep it the same. So it's the figure that's included in the adopted budget that should control.
Which was what, Judy? Do you know?
except that on the notes that you made, on 11/9, the 2018 budget was adopted after a public hearing. Highway superintendent salary was adopted at $51,366. 3/26/2018 revised adopted budget shows that the highway superintendent wage was $48,000. Well, you can't change budget in March of the following year when you adopted one on November 8th.
You could, but according to the comptroller's opinion, you could only reduce it by passing a local law subject to a mandatory referendum. You can't just do it by resolution or, just changing the amount of the paycheck. There's some hoops that the town board would have had to have jumped through, had the salary been changed. But, again, from what I'm hearing, it's been 48,000 preliminary budget, adopted budget paychecks.
It wasn't, though. It was changed it was published on the 8th, which was after the election, because the election was the 7th, I
7th.
believe, that year.
But the town law says that the hearing on the preliminary budget has to be held within a short time, like the first Thursday following the election. And then the budget hearing has to be held, I think, within 20 days after that. So the preliminary budget hearing
Oh, no, that has to be.
would have occurred after the election.
So the other problem we had is, did you have an opportunity to look at the union contract?
I haven't. Well, no, actually I have, but,
Okay.
and I don't know how that plays into it. I wish I'd reviewed it, before coming to the meeting, but
You did on Friday, I brought it to
I
you.
did, I know, I did, but like this afternoon, or so it's fresh in my mind.
This meeting. Well, you
Because
said
that would play into it. If we give Richie, then we have to increase the budget for the other highway people.
That's correct.
Because that's in their contract.
Well, you
Yes.
said when you read it that that's different because he's an elected official. That referred to employees.
That's why I wish I'd reviewed it before I came over.
But the way I read that was it would be a 4% max. You
Yes.
wouldn't match the total
No,
18% that actually had writing, if I read it correctly.
Yeah, no, you
It was
did.
maxed out at 4%.
Yes,
because
I
they got
recall
3%
that.
this year.
Okay.
So you wanna let the rest of the budget go till?
Yeah. But Richie, since you're here, I see there's a closure sign on Dutch Hill Road. It's a seasonal road. Is that gonna open back up, or are you working on it?
Where, Dutch?
Dutch Hill goes up on Jean Drum from.
And Daisy's Lane.
Yep, Daisy's
It's
Lane.
always been seasonal road closed.
And it's not when it's been closed, it's been a seasonal
Been there
road.
since, 5 years before I took office, so I left it there. It keeps
Really?
nosy people out. It's not a highway, it's a go path.
Huh.
You can go up and down it, you got
Yeah,
4-wheel drive.
yeah.
Don't take your Sunday car up there.
We go up it.
Okay.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know, I've never seen the.
That's
closed
been
one.
there 5 years before I took office. I left it there.
Okay.
It's on both ends.
Hmm.
Keep people out. Dangerous.
Doesn't that lessen,
Should close it.
doesn't that lessen the liability for the town if someone goes off of it? If it's closed?
Road closed.
Yeah,
Next year I will close it.
Close it?
Yeah, my next move. It's not worth having it. Let the owners have it. What good is it? For the local people to go up, just the farmer to go up and down it, and somebody wants to take a ride on Daisy's Lane.
Which road's that?
Up 36.
Off of Fleischman,
Red House.
off of Fleischman, down over the hill.
That's a fun road.
Should
GPS
be gone.
My GPS likes that road.
You know how many times tractor trailers turn around down there in the
Place
back?
says closed.
Well, when I was it last year, or the year before, they had a brush pile fire up there.
Local people will go up it, they know what they're up against.
You
I-
didn't go
that's
that
That's
way.
why we leave it like
You
this.
went that way?
That was my wife was hanging out the beer life.
You can go up and down it, it's flat.
Pickup truck goes up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take
Put
it.
in four-wheel drive, have good back tires.
Just floor it.
Yeah, don't pull a trailer up behind you.
Well, the GPS still sends people Whiting Road, which Plattsburgh closed probably 20 years ago.
Please
And
get
then
rid of
it
that road.
turns into Wheaton, and then
I got
they
stuck
still
on it.
send them that in the
Mhm.
wintertime. and just
GPS
went
took,
up the
GPS
road.
took me down that road going to Burkeville for a house fire. In the dead of winter.
Yeah,
In a car.
I remember the
That was
Velezes, they
scary.
both went over the edge together.
So to do this, and just a couple questions, if we move forward with it, we'd have to redo this again with the 4% match, according to the union contract.
Well, I don't know, because David had a question with that, because does that refer to elected officials, which are not the same as employees?
I guess we need that cleared up.
We all get a W-2.
Oh, yeah, but if you get an
You know,
income, you
again,
get a W-2.
there's a
That doesn't
distinction
matter.
between town officer and town employee, and town law specifies officers, supervisor, councilman, town highway superintendent, who are all different from employees primarily because they're elected.
And the contract only says employees, it doesn't say
Yes,
anything
it does
about
say
town officials.
That's my recollection.
That's how I read it too.
I
maybe
can
there's
get
that one
it if you
section.
guys wanna look at it. I mean, that's what it says.
I remember it saying that.
Is if you bump the salary of one employee up, then you bump salaries of the other employees up by comparable amounts with that cap at 4%.
I just wanted to make sure what is considered. That was my question, is what are we considering employees? So, because I know we've had this come up prior years for, the justices and stuff. I think it was, right?
Right, and he says the justices are definitely not employees, that they're.
They're officers.
They're officers.
Okay. I guess for now, we'll just leave it the same. I mean, Richie, I think you're doing a great job. There's no doubt about it. I really wish you would've come up with this 4 years ago when the issue occurred, because I feel, nothing against you, it was kind of blindsiding. You didn't know about it. I mean, I don't know if anybody knew about it. I for sure didn't know about it. So I kind of wish it would've come up 4 years ago when you noticed it. I mean, it could've got corrected back then real quick.
I
for
went
you.
to the man in charge, he says that's the way it is. So that's the way I've been sitting. So I was told different.
But just remember,
Started finding things out.
just as a reminder, one person's not the board.
Yep.
And the communication is usually, even back then, the communication was atrocious to us. So none of us knew about it.
Right.
And I wish I would've. So, but I think you're doing a fine job, just come to us as a whole. So, I'd be fine with just leaving it the way it is.
Well, with what's on here.
Hmm?
Well, those are the only things I think we have left to.
I don't know if you wanna just have Dave take one more really close look at that contract to make sure we don't have to adjust anything else with the raises. That would be about it.
The contract, I left to myself. Want
Okay.
to know.
Yeah.
It won't be, goes away. I don't, you will. But my question on that was how much of that has to be in the budget versus how much can we just pull out of the reserve to do it? Amos has got to do this reserve.
Right there.
That's huge. So anytime next year, if you want to construction, would you guys just do,
Line item transfers. No, this has to be, no, we can do it, we can do it.
That's what I figured you do, and then I don't know if figure the police, because you want to take some of that.
Well, that's in your A fund,
Yeah,
so we're not like that much.
yeah, exactly.
What you're gonna do, when you're gonna do the public,
Yep. I just assumed you'd do it that way.
Mm.
Well, let me just say something, since the supervisor's not here, I'm just gonna issue my 2 cents, since I did this for 14 years, that elected officials, as the town attorney would agree, are just that, they are elected officials. And under town law, the salary of the elected officials is the salary, and employees are totally separate from that of contractual issues. So
Which
the
is what I,
board
which
has
is what I
its
believe,
discretion.
which is what I believe it says.
Yes, right.
I just wanna make sure there's no hidden
No,
verbiage in a
no,
contract.
there's nothing hidden about it.
Well,
It's like they're not employees.
it's not hidden
They
until it's
are
hidden.
elected by the people.
Unclear.
And at a certain wage, and during that period, whether it be, I think, Rich, you're like 4-year term, the salary shall not be reduced less than what the person was elected at. But the board may increase that, as the board sees fit during its budget deliberations during those years. And so, trying to equate the salaries of other employees with those of elected officials is, difference between, potatoes and butter. They just don't, they don't mix.
Yeah, and that's the way I understand it, and that's the way I read the contract,
I think you're exactly right.
but he has more experience than I do with verbiage, I think.
I think I do too.
Oh, I've got lots of verbiage experience.
I could get lost in the fine print.
It's actually pretty
It seems pretty cut and dry.
legible.
Yeah. But it doesn't have too many fancy words.
That's the way we like it. I don't know where, I could probably get over to Naples and get it off my desk. Oh.
this is the contract before, but the wording is the same.